Prince William realized someone had dared to interfere with the one thing he believed was forever protected. Everything inside the palace changed. This was not another whispered disagreement hidden behind royal walls. It was not another carefully managed family misunderstanding. This was Diana's private register, the one place where her voice had survived untouched by politics, protocol, and palace spin. And according to what William believed he had just uncovered, someone had quietly altered it, not destroyed it, not erased it, altered it. That single discovery hit harder than any public scandal ever could because it felt like someone had reached into his mother's memory itself.
Once again, the Queen of Consorts surprises us, but not in a good way.
Made lurid and false claims about the royal family, which played on her fears and fueled paranoia.
William stared at the page over and over, hoping his eyes were somehow deceiving him. They were not. Every second of silence inside that room became louder than an argument. Every person waiting nearby could feel something breaking, even before William spoke a single word. He had always believed there were certain things inside the monarchy that no one would ever dare touch. Diana's private register stood at the top of that list. It was more than a historical document. It represented her private thoughts, her fears, and her hopes for her sons. To William, it was the closest thing he still had to hearing his mother's own voice without interpretation. That belief collapsed in front of him within minutes. The altered wording appeared small on the page, but its impact felt enormous. The original message had carried an unmistakable warning about protecting her sons from future household interference. Now the language seemed colder, softer, stripped of the urgency Diana had once expressed. William noticed the spacing, the different flow of the sentence, and wording that sounded strangely official. Every tiny detail suddenly looked like evidence rather than coincidence. The atmosphere inside the palace became almost unbearable. Staff members looked at one another without speaking because nobody wanted to become the first person to explain what had happened. William slowly closed the register with both hands. The sound echoed across the room like a final judgment. His chair slid backward sharply. No shouting, no dramatic outburst. Somehow that silence frightened everyone even more. He looked once toward the page and once toward the palace doors as if weighing two impossible choices. Stay inside the institution that demanded acceptance, or protect the memory of the woman who had spent her life trying to protect him. Without another word, William chose his mother. He walked away from the room, leaving behind an uncomfortable silence that nobody present would ever forget. But walking out was only the beginning. Behind those walls, questions exploded faster than anyone could answer them. Who approved access to Diana's register? Why had the wording changed? Was this simply administrative housekeeping, or had something far more deliberate taken place? Every explanation arriving from palace officials sounded carefully polished, yet somehow each answer created even more suspicion. William was not reacting to paperwork. He believed somebody had crossed a sacred boundary. That distinction changed everything. The palace suddenly found itself defending procedures while William defended memories. And Catherine found him moments later holding the closed register against his side. She immediately sensed something was deeply wrong. His face remained controlled, but she recognized the expression instantly. It was the same quiet heartbreak she had seen whenever Diana's name resurfaced in painful conversations. William looked directly at her and quietly said, "They changed her words." Those 4 words carried years of grief, frustration, and disbelief. Catherine did not need further explanation. She understood exactly why this discovery felt devastating. Diana's belongings were never ordinary royal possessions. They represented unfinished conversations, unresolved emotions, and memories that William still carried every single day. Meanwhile, Camilla reportedly remained unaware of just how deeply this discovery would affect William. Whether the wording had been questioned simply to modernize historical language or to reduce future controversy hardly mattered anymore. From William's perspective, the damage had already been done. He wasn't reading revised text. He believed he was witnessing someone editing his mother's voice. Every explanation sounded like justification. Every clarification sounded like another attempt to soften something that never should have been touched. Charles soon realized the family was approaching dangerous territory. As both father and king, he stood directly between his wife and his eldest son. He understood why William viewed the altered wording as a profound betrayal. Yet he also knew defending Camilla publicly had become central to maintaining stability within the monarchy. Every possible response carried consequences. Say too little, and William might believe silence meant approval. Say too much, and the family risked reopening decades-old wounds that had never truly healed. Inside palace corridors, senior aides quietly began began reviewing internal access records. One documented request reportedly referenced something called household clarification, an ordinary administrative phrase that normally attracted little attention. But suddenly those harmless words took on enormous significance. William reportedly focused immediately on that request. If someone had officially requested access, then someone had granted permission. And if permission existed, who authorized it? The question quietly spread through palace offices faster than any public rumor. Those questions pulled William back to an earlier private gathering known internally as the Windsor Legacy Review. The meeting had originally been intended as a respectful examination of sensitive family archives before responsibility gradually passed to the next generation. Nobody expected it to become the emotional turning point that now haunted everyone involved. During that review, one archivist reportedly read aloud Diana's original wording concerning protecting her sons. The room changed instantly. William reportedly lowered his eyes as though hearing his mother's voice reach across time itself. Harry's name appeared beside his own, reminding William that despite everything dividing the brothers today, Diana had always viewed them together. Charles reportedly remained silent throughout the reading. Camilla reportedly appeared visibly uncomfortable. That uncomfortable silence lingered long after the meeting ended. Only later did another conversation reportedly occur involving whether historic language could be softened for future palace summaries. At the time, it may have sounded procedural. Looking back, William believed that discussion became the first step toward altering Diana's original wording. Every event suddenly connected like pieces of one enormous puzzle. The review, the administrative request, the altered entry, none of them looked isolated anymore. They formed a chain. When William returned to the palace after walking out, he reportedly refused to meet with communications advisors or accept carefully prepared briefing papers. This time, he wanted answers directly from the people involved. The register rested between Charles, Camilla, and William like evidence inside a courtroom rather than a family heirloom. No aides, no carefully managed press language, just family confronting family. William reportedly pointed directly toward the altered wording and quietly said, "This was my mother." Those words landed harder than any raised voice ever could. The room fell into complete silence after William's words. Nobody rushed to answer because everyone understood the weight hanging over the register lying open between them. Charles carefully chose each sentence, trying to calm the situation without allowing the conversation to completely fracture the family. He spoke about context, about preserving unity, about avoiding decisions driven entirely by emotion. But to William, every carefully measured word sounded like another layer being placed between Diana's truth and the people who were supposed to protect it. Camilla insisted she had questioned certain wording during internal discussions, but denied personally rewriting the document itself. That distinction meant very little to William. As far as he was concerned, the original words had still been changed after someone from her office sought access. The argument was no longer about who physically held the pen. It had become a battle over responsibility, trust, and the right to influence Diana's legacy. Charles eventually asked everyone else to leave the room. Even then, William refused to step away from the register. He believed this conversation had moved far beyond palace procedures. If one protected document could quietly be altered, what guarantee existed that other pieces of royal history would remain untouched? That question echoed through his mind long after the meeting ended. Catherine remained nearby, understanding that this was not simply another family disagreement. She knew William needed answers from his father as a parent before hearing them from a king. Outside the room, every passing minute felt heavier than the last. Inside, nobody seemed capable of finding words powerful enough to repair years of emotional damage. As senior officials quietly reviewed internal records, another troubling discovery reportedly emerged. An archivist had preserved an image of the original register before any alteration had taken place. Suddenly, this was no longer a matter of memory against memory. There appeared to be documentation showing both versions side by side. William reportedly realized that if the original wording still existed, then Diana's voice had not been completely lost. It could still be protected. That realization slowly transformed his anger into determination. Revenge would not restore his mother's words, protection would. Later that evening, Catherine sat beside William away from palace walls and asked the question that completely shifted his perspective. She quietly asked whether he was fighting to punish Camilla or to protect Diana. The question stayed with him. For the first time since opening the register, William reportedly admitted he felt like the frightened young boy who had watched adults shape the story surrounding his mother's life while he stood powerless to stop them. Catherine listened without interruption before gently reminding him that Diana's legacy deserved permanent protection rather rather than another public family war. Her advice changed everything. Instead of chasing confrontation, William reportedly began considering a formal preservation order that would prevent future alterations without proper authority. The objective was no longer revenge. It became safeguarding history itself. In the end, William did not leave the palace because of ink on a page. He walked away because he believed his mother's voice deserved defending. And when the original words were finally protected once again, the greatest victory was never about proving someone wrong. It was about ensuring that Diana's memory could never again be quietly reshaped behind closed palace doors. The monarchy survived another painful chapter, but everyone involved emerged changed. Charles understood the cost of silence. Camilla understood the boundaries of influence. Catherine proved that wisdom often speaks louder than outrage. And William discovered that the strongest guardian is not the one who shouts the loudest, but the one who makes certain that the truth remains untouched for generations yet to come.